All right, Lions fans, the preseason is in the books. The Lions in it with a win at home against the Steelers. Let's talk about it. All right, as we have done the last 2 weeks for the first two games of the preseason, we will talk about what we saw, our likes and dislikes. As you all know, we did not have any starters playing the preseason, which I am absolutely okay with because we didn't want to take any chance on injuries happening. We already have enough to worry about with these joint practices and these internal practices of those situations happening. Let's look at let's look at the Lions. Sorry about that. Lost my screen. Let's look at the Steelers game that the Lions just won 24-17. And let's look at these stats. Now, as I always say, stats don't always show the picture of what really happened in the game. But let's start from the front of the offense all the way to special teams on what we saw. And then when we're done with this, we'll take a quick look at some projected cuts that could happen for the Lions, and I'll give my thoughts on them. Let's start with the quarterbacks. Now, Hendon Hooker played most of this game. He played well. If I'm not mistaken, he played, if I remember right, he played well into the beginning of the fourth quarter. Definitely, he played 3 quarters. It was talked before the game that Coach Dan Campbell wanted Hendon Hooker to pretty much play the whole game because he feels that he needed the reps with 2023 pretty much being a red shirt year for him. Nate Sudfeld didn't play at all because I heard the commentators mentioning that Sudfeld may have already sealed up that number 2 spot. I don't really see it or understand that, but that's a decision for the coaches to make. Hendon Hooker went 12 for 20, 114 yards, a touchdown and a pick. And if you saw the game, that pick was a pick that bounced off of the hands of a receiver into former Lion Cam Sutton's hands. So it's not an interception that you can really put on Hendon Hooker. As for Jake Fromm, we did get to see him today. Well, I should say yesterday when the game happened, 6 for 8 for 89 yards. For the whole preseason, I am going to give Hendon Hooker a solid B. Without having seen him at all in 2023, it was good to see him out here. I thought that Hendon Hooker looked sharp. I thought he looked poised, and I love the fact that he can extend plays and make plays with his legs. As for the cons for Hendon Hooker in this game, particularly against the Steelers, he is still holding on to the ball too long. What I do is I start that internal clock in my head every time that the ball is snapped. And there were times where I got to 4.5, 5 seconds, and Hendon Hooker still had the ball in his hand, not seeming like he did not know a good decision to make. But then after he got sacked a few times, and as you can see, he got sacked 5 times, he began to just roll out of the pocket, which is what I wanted to see. Now, the only thing about him rolling out of the pocket is that there were times that he took shots, as you can see for it when we look at his rushing, 10 carries for 93 yards. That's all fine and good. But a couple of those he did not slide or he did not slide in time. And that's something that we don't want to see our quarterback doing. As for Jake Fromm, we only got to see him for a little bit. I would give him a solid B minus for what we saw. I thought the throws that he made were pretty on point and he put the ball right in the basket. Let's move on to the running backs. There were guys out here fighting for a spot on this team. More than likely, they were fighting for a spot to either stay on the team for the practice squad or to be called back on the practice squad. We got a lot of Jack Funk. He had 10 carries. Jamar Jefferson, 9. Zonovan Knight, 10. I was impressed with Zonovan Knight. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the screen, you see 10 for 27 yards with a 2.7 average, but I thought that he ran hard and I thought he did the best that he could behind that backup offensive line. And I thought that Funk and Jefferson looked pretty well, and it's going to be a toss up on who gets that spot. I will actually give the running backs a B minus today. Let's move on to the receivers and tight ends. If you look at the numbers, not a lot stands out, but what stood out to me was Isaiah Williams, and I am going to combine his special teams play in this. He had one reception for 17 yards. He was targeted twice. It was a very good catch that he made, but his contribution was on special teams, and he may have done enough to win a spot on his team, preferably on the 53-man roster. As for the rest of the receivers, they didn't get targeted a lot. Tom Kennedy got targeted twice. He caught both balls for 9 yards. One of them was a tough screen where it wasn't really his fault that he couldn't get any production on it because there wasn't good blocking. Donovan Peoples-Jones didn't even catch a ball, 3 receptions. James Mitchell had a ball bounce off of his hand. Shane Zylstra, who is also a guy on the hot seat, 4 receptions for 29 yards. The thing about Zylstra is that he's really a slow wide receiver more than he is a tight end. I mean, he's about 215, maybe 220 pounds now. So he doesn't really give you much in the blocking game. Maurice Alexander had 4 for 60 yards. He pretty much did okay, but I do feel like it really came down to Caden Davis, Isaiah Williams, and Donovan Peoples-Jones to get that last spot. I would give the receivers a C+. Let's move on to the defense. As you see, there's a lot of guys that made a difference in this game, but I'm going to go with the guys who stood out. Broderick Martin had another decent game. He did get hurt in the game. Let me see if he had any tackles. I don't see him on the stat sheet, but what I like about Broderick Martin is he gives that push in the interior of the defense that the Lions desperately need. James Houston was actually out there today, and he did get a sack. He was hurt last week, and we didn't get to see him play. As for the pass rush, Ty Summers, who had a solid game, 9 tackles, 3 solo, 2 was for a loss, and he had 1.5 sacks. He did a pretty good job coming in from the blitz. Who else stood out that I want to talk about? Pat O'Connor stood out. He may have only had 2 tackles, but I like the push that he got on the line, and my guy Micah Wingo did pretty decent too, getting that push on the line. That's something we need. We need that push on the interior to help with the pass rush, just in case we don't get a lot on the other end opposite Aiden Hutchinson. And a guy that we've talked about pretty much this whole preseason, Betts. He only had 1 tackle, but I do still think that he may have showed a decent amount of flash that he can be a situational pass rusher. I will give the defense. I'm sorry, I didn't mention the linebackers. A lot of runs were making it into the second and third levels, especially during that first drive when the Steelers put their starters out there. Now, that first drive when the Steelers had their number ones out there, the defense, the backup players did not look good at all. The defensive line, they got 0 push on that starting Steelers line. And pretty much the Steelers just carved straight through those guys going down the field. But when they were against, I would say, their peers, the second and third stringers, I thought they stood out. As for the special teams, I've already talked about Isaiah Williams and how I was impressed with him. My guy, Jack Bates, he went 1 for 2. I was not happy with that. He missed, I want to say, it was like a 32, maybe 33 yarder. Even though he did hit that 46 yarder, I still think that he did enough to make this team and be our main kicker, and Jack Fox did what Jack Fox always does. So before we get to the projected cuts, let's look at some of what was going on Twitter. I went to Twitter and I was actually checking out some of the interviews and some of the things that were said by the players and the coaches. And let's slide over there and get a listening on some of these. This is Zonovan Knight talking about his production in this game.
Let's go down to Danny Rogers with Jamar Jefferson.
Jamar, on 9 rushing attempts, you come up with 2 TDs. What questions did you answer for this coaching staff today?
I mean, I feel like I had to come out here and prove myself. The O-line blocked great. They did their job, you feel me? And honestly, I just, I give a good thanks and shout out to them. They did everything.
Okay. You're a 7th-round draft pick to these Detroit Lions in 2021. You've gone between practice squad and active roster, which can't be easy. What motivates you to keep going in this league?
I mean, I just had to learn, a couple of old teammates that, that came through the Lions facility helped me a lot. A couple of older guys, you feel me? They helped me with my mentals, I got with a psychiatrist that helped me a lot. So I feel like the biggest thing that changed this year is just my mental.
Well, the support from the sidelines was palpable after that second touchdown. No one was more excited for you than Montgomery and the rest of the running backs. What kind of emotions did you have in that moment?
I love those guys, man. They always bring the juice in the room, locker room, and the football field. They're my biggest supporters. I like them. I love them, man. I love those guys.
Thank you.
All right, that was Donovan Knight talking about his big game today. Let's see what Hendon Hooker was talking about walking off the field.
Every day. One Pride. Shout out One Pride coming out and show us love, man. We'll continue to push and get better every day. One Pride. Shout out One.
All right, that was just a little selfie video he did going off the field. We see that the Meyer player of the game was Ty Summers. We talked about him a little earlier. Let's see what we have else that we have on here. This is about another minute long clip. Top 5 runs today from Hendon Hooker.
Hendon Hooker had to scoop that up off the turf.
All right, people, let's start it over.
See what he does here.
That's his strength in that slot.
You know, this is what we talked about. Hendon Hooker making plays with his leg. And this is a dynamic that the Lions haven't had from a quarterback in,
I'll say it again,
probably since
Hendon Hooker
Dante
brings a new
Culpepper.
dynamic to this Lions
And Culpepper
offense.
didn't even make tons of plays
His
with his
ability to-
legs, but that's the last time we've kind of had a really
yards this season.
exciting quarterback who made plays with his legs. That was a good play right there. Good awareness to pick the ball up and to make something happen.
Step up, made 2 men miss, high stepping his way.
That was a good job sliding right there.
You called for it, they gave it to you. Hooker going to roll to the opposite side of the pressure. Might have to use his legs again. Here he does. As a after to open up the regular season in Kansas City. Hendon Hooker guided that comeback. He's trying to do
Looking
it
down the
again
field, don't
here.
see anything.
Man miss. We've been
That's what
saying
we
that a
want to
couple
see.
of
Go ahead
times
and
in
take
this
off with the
drive.
legs, try to make something happen.
A little pump fake and go get it. Another pump fake and head fake.
All right, let's see if we have anything else. I thought I saw something in here from Coach Dan Campbell speaking on the game. Yes, we do. I got one more for you. Let's listen to Coach Dan Campbell talk about what he saw out there.
Listen, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Our fans are, I mean, this was crazy. We came out, I told our players before we came out, and I said, man, do you understand that this is the best environment you're gonna find in a preseason game for sure. And we're not even in the regular season yet, guys. So you talk about home field advantage. You can only imagine what this is going to be like in 2 weeks from now on Sunday night. Like this is the best. Like our fans are the best, and that's why we just got to keep doing our job. We got to keep winning and give them something to cheer about because they're going to do their part. That was amazing. I mean, it really was. Listen, unbelievable.
Right, so that was Coach Dan Campbell giving props to the One Pride Nation for showing their support out there for our Lions. And then we are going to look at the projected possible roster moves and cuts from the for the Lions. They have until 4 p.m. on this coming Tuesday to make the decision. So I'm going to go through what the New York Times have as their projections and kind of give you my thoughts. Remember, 53-man roster by 4 p.m. Tuesday, and not up to, but 16 people on the practice squad. They have the Lions holding on to 3 quarterbacks, Jared Goff, Hendon Hooker, Nate Sudfeld, with Jake Fromm being cut. I also can see it going that way. But I don't know if all 3 of these guys would be on the technical 53-man roster. Maybe they will. I thought that you could possibly see Hooker or Sudfeld demoted, if you want to call it that, to the practice squad so they can squeeze someone else in. But it's a possibility they're going to go string 1, 2, and 3 going into the season. I have no disagreement with this. Let's move on to the running backs. Their projection: Gibbs, Montgomery, Craig Reynolds, and Vaki. I also have no issue with that. Now, they say notable cuts: Jamar Jefferson and Donovan Knight. My gut tells me that both of these guys can and will be signed to the practice squad because I thought they may have did enough today to hold on to a spot and stay with the team. Wide receivers, 4 wide receivers: St. Brown, Williams, Khalif Raymond, and they have Isaiah Williams making the team. I do as well. I think that Isaiah Williams can also fill in for Khalif Raymond on special teams, and I think that he can make some moves out there. They have the cuts being Donovan Peoples-Jones, Doris Fountain, and Caden Davis. I could see that, but if Donovan Peoples-Jones is cut, I think that they would bring him back to be on the practice squad. I don't think they would just completely let him go. As for the offensive line, they have 5 offensive linemen. The starters: Decker, Glasgow, Ragnall, Zeitler, and Sewell. Those are your starters, with Sorsdale, Skipper, Manu, and Owasaki or Osaka, I should say, being the backups with Nice and Kingsley Agonkin being cut. I thought that Agonkin may stick on the team. Now, if this is what we're going with into the seasons, Ogakin, I could see him actually maybe even both of these guys, Nice and Agonkin, making the practice squad, because you always want to have depth at the offensive line position, because if one of these guys go down, or even if one of these four backups get hurt in practice, you want someone who can come in and fill in for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are cut, but they bring them back on the practice squad. As for the tight ends, they have Zylstra making it. They believe that Zylstra did enough today to make the active roster. And I'm going to have to say, from what I saw, he did. They have Mitchell and Hess being cut. I think that they won't let Mitchell go, because he's a solid receiver, even though he didn't show it today. But he's also a solid blocker. So I could see him being brought back on the practice squad. As for the defensive tackles, they have 6. Aleem McNeil, Reeder, who is hurt, and they're saying he may not be ready for game 1. Ozen Ricky, Pico, and Broderick Martin. I thought that Broderick Martin did a decent job this preseason, especially without seeing him in 2023. And my guy, Micah Wingo. If you've listened to me in games 1 and 2, I've sung his praises. And they have Chris Smith being cut. As for the edge rushers, they have 5: Hutchinson, Davenport, Pascal, Houston, and Agunde. Not a surprise there. John Kaminsky is on the IR. As soon as he's off the IR, he will be on the active roster. They have Ekwu and Betts being cut. I think that both of those guys will make the practice squad. I think that once they clear waivers, you're going to see both of those guys back. If those guys have to come up, they could actually make a play here or there in some type of package, or maybe like a situational pass rush. The linebackers, they have us holding on to 6 linebackers: Anzalone, Campbell, Barnes, Rodriguez, Reeves, Maben, and they have Nyman making a team, with Ty Summers being cut. I could actually see a flip-flop there. I could see Summers making a team and Nyman being cut, but I think that either way, one of those guys are going to be on the practice squad. As for the corners, the Lions have depth this year at corner. They have 5 corners. The guys that are not a surprise: Carlton Davis, Tyrion Arnold, and Mick Robinson, Ennis Rakestraw, but they have Khalil Dorsey as the number 5. Mosley's on the IR, so they have Gilmore and Vildor being cut. I'm not surprised there. Gilmore, to me, was too up and down. Every time he made either a good play or a good coverage play, a good tackle or a good coverage play, he would give up big yards. He got cooked in that game yesterday against the Steelers by their 3rd and 4th receivers. And Vildor, I didn't really see enough of him to keep him around, but my gut tells me that at least one of those guys is going to make the practice squad. They have us going with 5 safeties: Brian Branch, Joseph, Melifonwu, Brandon Joseph, who showed up a little bit with CJ Moore being the 5th, and they have Strickland, who we didn't see a lot of, being cut. And as for the special teams, I like it. Scott Daly with kicker Jack Bates and punter Jack Fox. That's what they have. And they have Hogan Hatton being cut. So Lions fans, what do you think? Do you like that projected roster? Is there something that you would rather see that they don't have? Is there somebody that should be on the 53-man roster who isn't? Or I'm just going by their projections. Is there somebody that you would rather see that you would project to be on there? How do you really see that going? And hold on, I'm sorry, my screen got jacked up a little bit. And what did you think about the Lions in the preseason? Were you impressed? What did you like? What did you not like? Did you like the fact that the starters didn't play at all like I did, or would you rather had seen the starters in there a little bit more, and maybe knock some rust off, or what have you? Or are you just absolutely fine with what you saw out there? All right, fans. Hey, even if you're not a Lions fan, like, comment, subscribe over on YouTube. And if you haven't already, go ahead and give us a follow over there. Don't forget about our TikTok. Give us a follow over there. Don't forget about our Twitter X. I've had it scrolling down on the screen the whole time. And I already mentioned our YouTube page. All right, Lions fans, 2 weeks. 2 weeks until the regular season starts. Maybe I'll jump back on here Tuesday once the Lions make their cuts and we can see the official 53-man roster. Other than that, Lions fans, that's all I got this time. Peace.